Good evening everyone, I am Mary Rose Garbo.
Tonight, I am going to report about the RA 9275
Or the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004.
This report aims to discuss the key provisions, objectives, and significance of RA 9275 as well as its impact on the environment.
To begin with, the introduction discusses the importance and objectives of the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004,
which says
the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004, or the Republic Act number 9275,
aims to protect the country's water bodies from pollution from land-based sources, just like industries and commercial establishments, agriculture, and community household activities.
This law provides a comprehensive policy to safeguard the country's water resources through proper wastewater management, regulation of water pollution sources,
and active involvement of communities and local government units.
The following section presents the background, purpose, and significance of RA 9275.
States that the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004
was created to address the growing problem of water pollution caused by industrialization,
urbanization, and agriculture.
The main goal is to protect water quality, promote sustainable development, and regulate wastewater through programs like water quality management areas and the national sewerage system. Although the law has led to improvements, challenges in enforcement, funding, and public awareness remain. After understanding the background, here are the main highlights of the law that should be answered later on. First is, how will water quality be managed? Or who will manage these areas? Who are the members of the governing boards? And what are the functions of the governing boards? So let us start to answer the first question, which is, how will water quality be managed? Management of water quality will either be based on watershed, river basin, or water resources region. It is to address interconnected water systems. Management areas are designated based on hydrological, meteorological, and geographical similarities for targeted interventions. The DENR and NWRB, or the National Water Resources Board, collaborate to ensure a unified strategy for sustainable water resource management and pollution control. The second highlights of the law is who will manage these areas. Management will be localized. Multi-sectoral governing board will be established to manage water quality issues within their jurisdiction. Meaning to say, water quality management will be localized through multi-sectoral governing boards, enabling them to address issues within their specific jurisdiction. This localized approach aims to provide more effective and tailored solutions to water quality challenges. And the third highlights is, who are the members of the governing boards? Governing boards shall be composed of representatives of mayors and governors, as well as local government units, representatives of relevant national government agencies, duly registered non-government organizations, as well as the concerned water utility sector and the business sector. This diverse composition ensures that decisions reflect local needs and incorporate expertise from various relevant sectors, and also to ensure comprehensive and informed decision making. And the last question of the first highlights is, what are the functions of the governing boards? The governing boards will formulate strategies to coordinate policies necessary for the effective implementation of this act. These boards will establish a multi-sectoral group dedicated to water quality surveillance and monitoring efforts. And also, this group will be tasked with implementing and maintaining effective monitoring systems. Ultimately, these actions support the Act's goals for water quality and environmental protection. The second group of highlights of the Clean Water Act is, how will discharges of wastewater be controlled? How will domestic wastewater be addressed? Or how will the discharge of wastewater be discouraged? And last, what safeguards are provided for? So let us start the first question. So how will the discharges of wastewater be controlled? All owners or operators of facilities that discharge wastewater are required to get a permit to discharge from the DENR or the Laguna Lake Development Authority. Existing industries without any permit are given 12 months from the effectivity of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, promulgated pursuant to this act to secure a permit to discharge. This mandate ensures regulated wastewater disposal to protect water quality. The second question is, how will domestic wastewater be addressed? The Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, in coordination with local government units, will prepare a national program on sewage and septage management not later than 12 months from effectivity of this act. A priority list will likewise be prepared, which will be the basis for the allotment of funds on an annual basis by the national government for the construction and rehabilitation of required facilities. On the other hand, LGUs are to provide the land, including road, right of the way for the construction of sewage and or septage treatment facilities, and raise funds for the operations and maintenance of said facilities. The Department of Health, or DOH, will formulate guidelines and standards for the collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage, as well as the guidelines for the establishment and operation of centralized sewage treatment system. The MWSS and other agencies mandated to provide water supply and sewerage facilities are required to connect existing sewage lines, subject to the payment of sewerage service charges or fees within 5 years following effectivity of this act. The third question of the highlights is, how will the discharge of wastewater be discouraged? Anyone discharging wastewater into a water body will have to pay a wastewater charge. This economic instrument, which will be developed in consultation with all concerned stakeholders, is expected to encourage investments in cleaner production and pollution control technologies to reduce the amount of pollutants generated and discharged. Effluent trading per management area will also be allowed. Rewards will also be given to those whose wastewater discharge is better than the water quality criteria of the receiving body of water. Fiscal and non-fiscal incentives will also be given to LGUs, water districts, enterprise, private entities, and individuals who develop and undertake outstanding and innovative projects in water quality management. The last question of the highlights is, what safeguards are provided for? All possible dischargers are required to put up an Environmental Guarantee Fund, or EGF, as part of their environmental management plan. The EGF will finance the conservation of watersheds and aquifers and the needs of emergency response, cleanup, or rehabilitation. After answering the two sets of the key highlights of the Clean Water Act, it is important to understand why the need for the Clean Water Act. As early as 1996, monitoring of the country's rivers showed that only 51% of the classified rivers still meet the standards for their most beneficial use. The rest were already polluted from domestic, industrial, and agricultural sources. Most studies point to the fact that domestic wastewater is the principal cause of organic pollution at 48% of our water bodies, yet only 3% of investments in water supply and sanitation were going to sanitation and sewage treatment. 31% of all illnesses in the country are attributed to polluted waters. Clearly, to ensure access to clean water for all Filipinos, it was imperative that government put together a comprehensive strategy to protect water quality. Now that we understand the reasons behind the creation of the Clean Water Act, let us look at the specific activities that the law prohibits to address these problems. What are the prohibited acts under RA 9275? First, disposal of potentially infectious medical waste into sea by vessels. Unauthorized transport or dumping into waters of sewage, sludge, or solid waste. Transport, dumping, or discharge of prohibited chemicals, substances, or pollutants listed under toxic chemicals, hazardous, and nuclear. Discharging or depositing any water pollutant to the water body or such which will impede natural flow in the water body. Discharging, injecting, or allowing to enter into the soil anything that would pollute groundwater. Operating facilities that discharge regulated water pollutants without the valid required permits. Followed by the Waste Control Act of Republic Act No. 6969. Discharging regulated water pollutants without the valid required discharge permit pursuant to this act. and non-compliance of the LGU with the Water Quality Framework and Management Area Action Plan, and refusal to allow intra-inspection and monitoring as well as access to reports and records by the DENR in accordance with this Act. Refusal or failure to submit reports and or designate pollution control officers whenever required by the DENR in accordance with this Act. Directly using booster pumps in the distribution system or tampering with the water supply in such a way to alter or impair the water quality. Of course, laws are only effective if they have consequences. That's why RA 9275 also provides fines and penalties for polluters who violate its provisions. The following are among the fines and penalties for violators of this Act and its IRR. Upon the recommendation of the Pollution Adjudication of Board or PAB, anyone who commits prohibited acts such as discharging untreated wastewater into any water body will be fined for every day of violation. The amount of not less than 10,000 but not more than 200,000 pesos. And failure to undertake clean-up operations willfully shall be punished by imprisonment of not less than 2 years and not more than 4 years. This also includes a fine of not less than 50,000 pesos and not more than 100,000 pesos per day of violation. Failure or refusal to clean up which results in serious injury or loss of life or lead to irreversible water contamination of surface, ground, coastal, and marine water shall be punished with imprisonment of not less than 6 years and 1 day and not more than 12 years and a fine of 500,000 per day for each day the contamination or emission continues. In cases of gross violation, a fine of not less than 500,000 pesos but not more than 3 million pesos will be imposed for each day of violation. Criminal charges may also be filed. Now that we know the penalties for polluters, let us discuss who should implement and enforce the Clean Water Act. The DENR is the primary government agency responsible for the implementation and enforcement of this act, with the support of other government organizations, local government units, non-government organizations, and the private sector. Towards this end, the DENR will review and set affluent standards, review and enforce water quality guidelines, classify groundwater sources, and prepare a national groundwater vulnerability map, classify or reclassify water bodies, establish internationally accepted procedures for sampling and analysis, prepare an integrated water quality management framework, and subsequently prepare a 10-year management plans for each water management area. And this is all for my report. Thank you so much for watching and God bless us all.